Hello, welcome back to my class. Today we are going to learn more about process costing. So in the last class, we have learned process costing using the weighted average method. In today's class, we are going to a little bit different method, that is FIFO method, which is also used for process costing. And then we are also going to address the allocation of service department cost. So let's look at the learning objective. First, we are going to compute the equivalent units of production using FIFO method. And then we will compute the cost per equivalent unit using the FIFO method. And then assign cost to units using the FIFO method. And then prepare a cost reconciliation report. So the processes are pretty similar with pretty same with the weighted average method. And then we are going to address the issue of allocation of service department cost. So we're going to allocate service department cost to operating department using the direct method and also the step down method. First, FIFO method. The FIFO method of process costing is generally considered more accurate than weighted average method, but FIFO it is more complex. FIFO method calculates unit cost using only the costs and outputs from the current period. On the other hand, weighted average method it calculates unit cost using cost and output from the current and prior period, right? So FIFO method it use only the cost and outputs from the current period to calculate the unit cost. On the other hand, remember that weighted average method it blends the cost and outputs from the current and prior period. Why? Because we do not distinguish the beginning working process inventories cost when we calculate the unit cost, right? We all blend the beginning inventory and the cost that is started during this period. So FIFO method it distinguish between these two, but weighted average method it blends all these things together. So first step is to compute the equivalent unit of production. Equivalent unit of production under FIFO method differs from the computation under weighted average method in two ways. So how are they different? First, units transferred out is divided into two parts. One part consists of units from the beginning inventory. Okay, so units transferred out is the units that is transferred from the working process of the first process transferred to the working process of the second process. Okay, so the units transferred out consist of the beginning inventory that were completed and transferred out, and the other part consists of the units that were both started and completed during the current period. Okay. Weighted average method, they do not distinguish between these two when we are calculating equivalent units. In the weighted average method, we just sum these up. However, under the FIFO method, we distinguish between these two. Under the FIFO method, both beginning and ending working process inventories are converted to equivalent units. For the beginning inventory, the equivalent units represent the work done to complete the units. Okay, for the ending inventory, the equivalent units represent the work done to bring the units to a stage of partial completion at the end of the period. So in the working process, the account, there was beginning inventory. So let's say that it is only 20% complete, okay? And then this beginning inventory will be some they be completed. Maybe during this period they are completed. How? By putting 80% of cost further, right? So this is the work done to complete the units. Okay, this is the work done to complete the units. And then we put more and more cost, right? Direct material, direct labor, and overhead. And from these, let's say that this amount is transferred out. Okay, these amounts are transferred out. And then the remaining this amount is the ending inventory, right? Ending inventory. So ending inventory, let's say that it is 30% completed. Okay, then the cost that are put into this process consists of this 80% to complete the beginning inventory and 100% of the works that is started and completed, and the works that is put into the inventory, put into the put into the process but has not been completed at the end of the period. Okay, so all of sorry this is not so all of these comprises the efforts put into the process during the period. So in the FIFO method, we distinguish between these components. Okay. So FIFO method, we make a separate calculation for each cost category and in each processing department, right? Why? Because this is the process costing, right? Process costing, we collect and trace the cost for each department. So equivalent units of production is equivalent units to complete beginning working process inventory. Okay, for example, this is 80%. And then we add units started and completed during the period, right? Let's say in the previous slides, these one, right? And we also add equivalent units in ending working process inventory. Here, ending working process inventory. So equivalent units to complete beginning working process inventory equals units in beginning working process inventory times 100% minus percentage completion of beginning working process inventory, right? For example, let's say that this beginning inventory was 100 units, okay, 100 units, and it was 20% completed. Then the efforts to complete this beginning inventory is 80%. Then the equivalent unit of this beginning inventory during this period is 100 units times 100% minus the completion of the beginning. So 100 units times 80%, so equivalent unit should be 80 units. Okay. So equivalent units of production can also be determined as follows. Equivalent units equals units transferred out plus equivalent unit of ending working process inventory minus equivalent unit in beginning working process inventory. Okay, so either way, we can compute the equivalent unit of production under the FIFO method. The essential difference between the two methods two method means the FIFO method and weighted average method. The difference is that weighted average method blends costs and outputs from the current period with the costs and outputs from the prior period. On the other hand, FIFO method separates the two periods. Okay? So let's look at this example. Let's compute the equivalent units of production using FIFO method. So equivalent units needed to complete beginning work in process inventory. So first column is the direct material and the second column is conversion cost. Okay, so remember that in the weighted average method as well, we computed equivalent units each for direct material and conversion cost. Why? We separately compute the equivalent units for direct material and conversion cost because these two costs have different uh, process percentage, right? Different completion percentage. So that is why we separately compute the equivalent units of direct material and conversion. All right, so beginning inventory, it was 200 units. It were 200 units. And remember that this 200 units, it is not equivalent unit. It is different from equivalent unit, right? Because these 200 units, they are incomplete. They are not completed, okay? So we have to convert these 200 units into equivalent units using the completion percentage, okay? So these 200 units, let's draw the working process. There was beginning inventory of 200 units and 200 units, the direct material components of these 200 units, the completion rate was how much? 55%. And the conversion for the conversion component of this beginning inventory, the completion rate was 30%. Okay? And then how much effort were put into this beginning inventory to transferred out, to be completed and transferred out. So they are completed. To complete this beginning inventory, we should put 45% more direct material, right? And for the conversion, we have to put 70% more effort to complete these beginning inventory as a partially completed goods at this process, right? Then let's convert this 45% of additional efforts to complete as an equivalent unit. Then equivalent unit is 200 units times 45%. And look at that. 45%, it is 100% minus 55%. Okay? So 200 units times 45% is 90 units. Okay? So 90 units of equivalent units are done during this period to complete this beginning inventory as a partially completed goods. For the conversion cost component, 200 units times 70%. 70% equals 140 units. Okay, 140 units. So here, 90 units of equivalent units for the beginning inventory and 140 for conversion cost of beginning inventory. And then we newly started and completed. How many units? 4,600 units. Okay, so they are also completed and transferred out. So because these 4,600 units are 100%, 100% of efforts are put into this process fully in this period, so we have to account for 4,600 as a whole, right? Both for the direct material and the conversion cost. And an equivalent units in ending working process. So we have another started units, started but incomplete. They are ending inventory of this process, right? Ending inventory. They are 400 units, okay? And for this ending inventory, direct materials completion percentage is 40%, and the conversion cost completion percentage is 25%. Then how many efforts are put into this working process during this period? We have to convert to the equivalent units. So equivalent unit is 400 units times the 40% times 40% of effort. They are put into this process during this period, right? During this period. So look at that. We are accounting for the efforts that is made during this period, okay? So sorry. Let me convert to the highlighter. Okay, so we are only accounting for the efforts that is being made during this period. This 45%, it is made during this period. This 70%, it is made during this period. And this 100% made during this period, and 40% during this period, 25% during this period. Okay? So under the FIFO method, we account for the cost and outputs during the current period only. Okay? So let me go back to my pen. Okay. So conversion cost, its equivalent unit is equivalent unit is 400 units times 25%. Okay, so the direct materials of the ending inventory, the equivalent unit is 160, and for the conversion cost, 100 units. Okay, there's 60 and 100 units. So in total, the equivalent unit of production is, for the direct material, 4,850. Conversion cost, the equivalent unit of production is 4,840. So again, remember that these are the efforts that is made, effort made during this period, during the current period only. Okay, we do not add any effort made in the prior period, right? So this 55%, 30% of cost that is made in the previous period, they are not included in this equivalent unit calculation. So they are only the current period. Okay. So we are done with the calculation of equivalent units. Before going to the next step, let's compare with the weighted average method. So this is the weighted average method in the previous class. So when we are calculating the equivalent units under the weighted average method, we include we include um here we do not exclude this one. We do not exclude this one. So we account for these 200 units and 4,600 units together because they are all transferred out. Okay, we do not trace out these the prior period's effort under the weighted average method, right? So the units transfer to the next department. 4,800 conversion 4,800. We do not exclude some of the effort that were made during the prior period, right? So look at this. Look at this. This is 4,800 and this is 4,690. Okay. So there is the difference of 110 units, right? Why? Because this 55%, 110 units, it is not included as a equivalent unit under the FIFO method. However, under the weighted average method, they are all included as the equivalent unit calculation. Okay? Conversion cost as well. 4,800, but this is 4,740, right? So there is 60 units difference. 60 units difference. This is the 30% that is completed during the prior period. This is the 60 units. They are excluded from the equivalent units under the FIFO method, but they are included in the equivalent units under the weighted average method. Okay. So, and the ending inventory, the calculation is same. However, the difference between the FIFO method and the weighted average method is what? Whether we trace out the beginning inventory's completion that is done in the prior period. Okay, we exclude this efforts that is already being made in the prior period. We exclude these under the FIFO method when we are calculating the equivalent units. However, under the weighted average method, we include these completed portion of the beginning inventory when we are calculating the equivalent units. Okay. The second step is to compute the cost per equivalent unit. So in the first step, we already computed number of equivalent units, right? 4,850 for the direct material cost and 4,840 for conversion cost. So here. And then to compute the cost per equivalent unit, we have to figure out the numerator. numerator is cost added during the period. Okay, cost added during the period. Under the FIFO method, when we calculate the cost per equivalent unit, the numerator includes only the cost that is added during the current period. Okay, so let's compare. Um, Before going to the comparison, let's calculate the cost per equivalent unit. So shaping and milling department's cost per equivalent unit is here. So cost adding the during this period is the direct material cost that is added during this period is $368,600, and conversion cost $350,900 are added during this period. Okay, then we divide these current period's cost with the equivalent units that is computed in the first step. And then cost per equivalent unit is $76 for direct material and the $72.50 for conversion cost. All right. Here, look at this one. In the weighted average method, we include, when we are figuring out the numerator, this numerator, under the weighted average method, the numerator includes cost of beginning inventory as well as cost added during the period. Okay, so look at this. So under the FIFO, we only account for the cost adding during this period, but under the weighted average method, we also include cost of beginning working process inventory, right? In addition to the cost added during the period. Okay? So total cost is bigger than the numerator of the FIFO method, right? So this is bigger. Why? Because under the weighted average method, cost of beginning working process inventory is included when determining the numerator cost. Okay, equivalent units. Denominator is equivalent units. So under the FIFO method, we already done this. And then let's go to the third step. We already computed the equivalent units and cost per equivalent units, right? Then the cost per equivalent units are used to assign cost. Value means assign dollar cost. We have to assign cost to what? First, to the complete beginning working process inventory. And then we have to assign the cost to the equivalent unit of ending working process inventory. And then we have to assign cost to the units that were started and completed during this period. Okay? So let's assign cost. First, ending working process inventory. And then second, units transferred out. Right? So ending working process inventory. The equivalent unit for direct material is 160 and equivalent unit for conversion cost is 100. Cost per equivalent unit, it is computed in the second step right here. Second step. Here, So the cost of ending work in process inventory is computed by multiplying the equivalent unit, number of equivalent units times the cost per equivalent units, right? So for the direct materials, so work in process inventory ending balance. So we have to figure out the ending balance, dollar amount of ending balance, and the dollar amount of transferred units, right? Dollar amount of transferred units. For the ending inventory, direct material is $12,160 and conversion cost $7,250. So in total, dollar amount of ending inventory is $19,410. Okay. How about the units transferred? Units transferred out consist of cost to complete the units in beginning working process inventory, right? Beginning inventory. So beginning inventory have two parts already completed in the prior period and efforts made during this period. Okay, so this goes to this and this goes to this. Okay, so the transferred out, the dollar value of transferred out includes both, right? This part and this part includes both. However, under the FIFO method, we separately computed the the dollar value of these two parts, right? So in the previous step, we computed this this part using only the cost and outputs of the current period. Okay. Anyhow, these two parts are included in the dollar value of transferred units, so we have to add these two parts when we are computing the dollar value of transferred units. So cost in beginning working process inventory. This is the prior period's cost. They are. This is the direct material 9,600 and conversion cost 5,575. So in total $15,175. Okay, and this part cost to complete the units in beginning working process inventory. We use the equivalent units, right? Equivalent units we computed is 90 units for direct material and 140 for conversion, and we multiply with the cost per equivalent units computed in the second step, and then the dollar value amount of this part is direct material 6,840 and conversion cost 10,150. So in total it is 16,990. All right. And then the remaining one is the units that is started and completed during this period. They also go into this the dollar value of transferred units, right? They are 4,600 units. We then multiply with the cost per equivalent units. Then this part, the dollar amount is direct material 349,600 and conversion 333,500. So in total $683,100. Then sum of these one. Sum of these one. The beginning inventory, they were already completed in the prior period, and the additional effort being made to complete the beginning inventory here. And then the started and completed units here. They are the cost of units transferred out. Okay. And the ending inventory was already computed here. Then the last step is to prepare a cost reconciliation report. The cost assigned to ending work in process inventory and to the units transferred out reconcile with the cost we started with the exhibit 4-A. So remember that in exhibit 4-8 in the last class, the cost beginning working process inventory was 15,175 and cost 82 production during the period is 719,500. So the total cost to be accounted for is $734,675. So in the T account, work in process, so beginning inventory, among the beginning inventory, cost the beginning work in process inventory, it was $15,175. Okay. And then the cost added to production during the period, the effort made to complete the beginning inventory, and the units started and completed, and the ending inventory. Let me erase. So these are the cost added to production during the period. This is $719,500. Okay. So the sum of these costs is $734,675. Then this should be reconciled with the ending work in process inventory and units transferred out. Let me change the color of the pen. So among these costs, these are completed and transferred out. Okay, and the remaining one is ending inventory. Okay, so some, because these are completed and transferred out, some of these transferred out and ending inventory, some of these and these should equal this number. Then let's check whether they are really equal. So cost of ending work in process inventory 19,410. Here 19,410. And then cost of units transferred out 100 and 700, 15,265. Then some of these are 734,675, which is equal to 734,675. Okay, now we reconciled the numbers in the exhibit 4-8 and the numbers that is computed for the dollar value work in process inventory and units transferred out. Okay, let's compare the costing method. So in most situations, the weighted average and FIFO method will produce very similar unit cost. If there never are any ending inventory, the two methods will produce exactly identical result. Why? Because without any ending inventory, then no cost can be carried forward into the next period, right? If there is no ending inventory, then there is no beginning inventory in the next period, right? Then the weighted average method will base the unit cost on just current period cost, right? So work in process, no beginning inventory. Then all of the costs are current cost. Then weighted average method will also compute the equivalent units and the cost per equivalent units only based on the current cost, right? Then the weighted average method becomes same with the FIFO method in terms of the result. From the standpoint of cost control, FIFO method is better than weighted average method. Why? Because current performance should be evaluated based on the cost of the current period only, right? But the weighted average method blends the cost of the current period with the cost of the prior period. So under the weighted average method, the manager's apparent performance in the current period is influenced, is diluted by what happened in the prior period. This problem does not arise under the FIFO method because FIFO method makes a clear distinction between cost of prior period and cost incurred during the current period, right? In the previous one, so we clearly make distinction between the cost made in the prior period and cost made in this period, okay? In prior period and this period and this period. And this is also this period. We trace out the prior cost. So for the same reason, FIFO method also provides more up-to-date cost data for decision-making purposes. Why? Because we do not blend the past information with the new information. The second topic of today's class is service department cost allocations. So most larger organizations have both operating departments and service departments. A manufacturer may incur service department costs that need to be included in the unit product cost calculation that it uses to value inventory and the cost of goods sold. Okay, many service departments provide service to each other as well as to operating department. So they are called as interdepartmental service or reciprocal services. So in this regard, the service departments cost are allocated to the operating or manufacturing department. Okay, so let's look at this example. There are two service departments, hospital administration and custodial services. There are two service departments. There are two operating departments. They are similar with the manufacturing department. Okay, manufacturing department. So they making the revenue from the product, making the revenue from the services. Okay, from the main product. Okay. So the operating department, there are two departments, laboratory and patient care. Okay. So the departmental cost before allocation is 360,000 for the hospital administration, 90,000 for the custodial service, 261,000 laboratory, 689,000 for patient care. And here are some other informations like employee hours and space occupied by each department. Okay, so employee hours for hospital administration is 12,000 hours, custodial services 6,000 hours, laboratory 18,000 hours, patient care 30,000 hours. And the occupied square foot is 10,000 square foot for hospital administration, 200 for custodial, 500 for laboratory, 45,000 for patient care. Okay, so given this information, let's allocate the service department's cost to operating department using the direct method. So first method is direct method. The direct method is simpler than the step-down method that we will address in the next slides. Direct method is simpler because it ignores any services provided by one service department to another service department. Okay, so direct method ignores inter-department services. So even though hospital administration and custodial services provides services each other, direct method ignore this interdepartmental service. So direct method only allocate the service department's cost directly to the operating department. The hospital allocates its hospital administration cost on the basis of employee hours and its custodial services cost on the basis of square feet occupied. So let's look at this example. So the departmental cost before allocation is 360,000 for hospital administration. Then these costs should be allocated to operating department based on what? Based on employee hours. Okay, then these 360,000 should be allocated to laboratory and patient care. So 135,000 is allocated to laboratory and 225,000 is allocated to patient care. How these numbers are calculated? 360,000 times what? Employee hours proportion. Employees hours proportion. 18 hours divided by what? 18 hours and 30,000. 18,000 hours and 30,000 hours. Why do we account for only the hours of operating department? Because we are allocating the cost only to the operating department. Okay, so the denominator should be only the employee hours of operating department. And this number is computed as follows. Okay. Custodial services also allocated to laboratory and patient care. So this 9,000 is computed by $90,000 times square foot proportion. Square foot proportion. Here. 5,000 divided by 5,000 plus 45,000. Okay. And this is 90,000 times 45,000 divided by 5,000 plus 45,000. Okay. So this is how we do the direct method when we allocate the cost of service department to the operating department. Step down method is the step-by-step. Okay, step down method provides for allocation of a service department cost to other service department as well as to operating department. So hospital administrations is service cost first allocated to other department. Now, the hospital administration's costs are allocated to service department and the operating department. Okay, and then the custodial services cost is allocated to operating department. So step down method is called as step down method because in the first step we allocate one service department's cost to other departments. And in the second step, we allocate the other service department's cost to operating department. Okay, so let's look at this. This hospital administration's 360,000 should be allocated to operating department as well as the other service department. Okay, so they are computed by number of employee hours, right? So for example, this 200,000 is computed by, how much is it? Computed by 30,000 divided by the sum of this. 30,000 hours divided by $6,000 plus $18,000 plus $30,000. Okay. And then in the second step, we allocate the custodial services cost to operating department. Okay. However, we do not allocate the custodial services cost to hospital administration. We do not allocate this one. Why? Because it is like a cascade. Okay. First, we allocate the hospital administration, and then we allocate the other service department custodial services cost to the only the operating department, but we do not allocate custodial services cost to the hospital administration. Okay, this is the step down method. So the 90,000 is allocated to the laboratory and patient care as each. Okay. And look at this. When we are allocating the custodial services cost in the second step, we do not allocate only the 90,000. We allocate 90,000 and the 40,000 together. Where does 40,000 comes from? 40,000 comes from the allocation of hospital administration's cost. Okay, so the custodial service 90,000 and the allocated 40,000. So 130,000. Now it is the new, it is the 130,000. It should be allocated to operating department. Why? Because custodial service it um it has control over the 90,000 and the 40,000 as well. Okay. So in total, 130,000 should be allocated to laboratory and patient care, which are operating department. So 13,000, it is computed by how much? 130,000 times 5,000 square feet divided by 5,000 square feet and 45,000 square feet. Okay. So this is how we do the step down method. So chapter 4 summary. We learned the FIFO method of process costing and also how to allocate the service department cost.